Wealth Grower YouTube channel. My name is Axel Meyerhöfer and I'm the founder of Ideal Wealth Grower. So in today's video, I would like to talk to you a little bit about our most recent experience with a new platform that we tried out recently called Clubhouse. And just to give you an idea how that actually works or what it really is, you might be familiar with YouTube, like you see me here on YouTube doing a video, and you might also be familiar with podcasting. And if you think about it, podcasts, you have mainly, in most podcasts, you have the audio that you can bring up and tap into and listen to, and you can become a subscriber to a podcast channel and then listen to one podcast after the next, and you can be a subscriber to multiple channels. And so the content of the podcast is a little bit like an information library, right? So you can get interested in a certain topic that somebody is covering. Like I'm a big fan of Get Rich Education, Keith Weinhold's podcast. And he talks about all kinds of things about real estate and what the interest rates are and how to do turnkey investing and stuff. Somewhat similar to what we are doing at Ideal Wealth Grower. He has a little bit a bigger, broader picture because he is focusing more on interviewing people who look at every aspect of real estate, while we are more focused on our strategy of out-of-state residential turnkey real estate investing. So, and there are many, many, many other podcasts about real estate investing and real estate in general, and all kinds of different real estate investing. And so if you are new to the topic or you're new and interested in real estate investing, you could go on iTunes or Spotify or any one of those organizations and platforms and search podcasts for real estate investing, find them, and then basically start listening to them while you're driving or on your phone or in the gym or wherever you might be, or at home, just relaxing. And the information is basically permanently available to you. If you like to have a visual representation, somebody talking with you, talking to you like we're doing right now, YouTube is a great place. And there are plenty of channels on YouTube that you can go into, including our channel. So what then is the difference with Clubhouse? And what we find is with Clubhouse, for one, people are interested in a topic, but they want to have the opportunity, at least as one additional way. That doesn't mean it's going to replace podcasting or it's going to replace YouTube, but it's an additional way of what a lot of people call social communication. And what that really means is you come together around a topic or a theme, and you talk about it more in the sense of going to an event. So think about like a conference or a meeting or something like that. And that meeting may have a panel of experts or just one expert. And you can be in the audience and you can be asked while you're there to come up to the stage and ask a question or become part of the discussion. And you're doing this while you're basically in this conference room, in this meeting, in this event. And when the event is done, either because it has a certain amount of time that it was scheduled for, let's say an hour or 90 minutes, or because there are no further questions about whatever the topic or the theme was that was asked, then the event is completed. And one of the fundamental differences is there is more spontaneity in Clubhouse because anybody can basically raise their hand and say, hey, I have a question or I would like to be asked to come on stage. And you do that in the moment while you're actually in the room, in the event. And when the event is completed, it's literally gone. So there is no record, there is no something where you can go back and say, oh yeah, there was somebody like Axel from Ideal Wealth Grower did a Clubhouse. I want to see what they talked about and go to that recording. That would be a podcast, right? So if we wanted that, we would do a podcast. If you wanted to see how it actually looked like, you would do a YouTube video. But the Clubhouse is literally in the moment, in the actual situation, in the event, and you can go into the room. And if you go to this analogy of a big conference, as we used to go to big conferences in person, you had different sessions in different areas on the trade show or conference room or floor, or if the conference is in a big hotel, and you have these different conference rooms, and you could look at the schedule and say, okay, what is going on? And in many of the really big conferences, they had different themes about different stuff, and you would be able to go from one room to the next room to the next room, initially to maybe check it out, and then if you find out there's a particular theme that you really like, then you might want to go to more sessions of that theme. So why I'm giving you this a little bit of 3-4 minutes intro to what actually the difference is with Clubhouse. The aspect that I wanted to raise from our first Clubhouse session, and we're planning the next one, but we did one and we brought different people from different aspects of real estate investing together. And so we had somebody who was mainly focused on business real estate investing, somebody who was mainly focused on multifamily investing, and then me as the host together with my friend Nico, who basically moderated the whole event for the residential real estate investing. And what was kind of interesting is that the discussion from a lot of people, and especially the questions that were asked, revolved around, is it that you basically look at one of those three in this case that we had in our Clubhouse, or do you graduate from one to the other? And I can say that really resonated, and that's why I wanted to make this video today, because this question, when I ask people from bigger pockets, or somebody sets up a complimentary session on our website where you can schedule a call with me, or somebody writes me an email, or to some of our folks, or you basically have a comment on either a YouTube video or Instagram, any one of those kind of things. A lot of times when I ask people, okay, so let's assume you transition from where you are right now, collecting money in your accumulation account or savings account, to do your first residential real estate investment. How do you see your path going forward? What is your trajectory? And some people say it right away or write it in an email right away, and some people answer when I ask the question. So what I hear people are talking about as their trajectory is they want to do some investments in residential real estate, getting like a single family home or maybe a duplex. Then they see themselves graduating into what they call multifamily, meaning like something like 10-unit apartment complex, maybe then a 50-unit apartment complex, and then go commercial. And so they see that trajectory. And one of the things that I always cringe a little bit about is that it is oftentimes forgotten, in my view, and I admit that I'm biased about it, but it is, in my view, oftentimes forgotten that each one of those segments is really, really distinct, is really, really different from each other. So why are we and remain to be in the residential real estate investing sector is, number one, you can get a single house, a duplex, a triplex or a fourplex, all under the same rules, under the same kind of financing, all under the same basically aspects that apply. And there's a lot of aspects. If you go to our video series Terminology Explained, you see one video after the other. I think we have like 30, 40, 50 videos now explaining different terms, and they're all related to residential real estate investing. If you were to say, okay, well, I want to be a multifamily real estate investor, you could do easily another 50 or 100 or however many more terms that are specifically to multifamily investing that we are not even covering and don't need to cover because that's not what we do. And then when you go to business type of real estate investing, that would be another set. So there's a lot to learn, and if somebody says I do this one first and then the next one and the next one, it's an enormous mountain to climb when it comes to all the things that you need to learn. But then there are also other things that are relevant and to consider. So why are we, slightly biased, so much advocating for residential? One of the main things is control. So when you think about it, when you buy a single family residence or a duplex or a triplex, you're the owner, you decide who is going to manage it, you decide who the tenants are going to be, you decide if when you ever want to get out of it, if you actually sell it to an investor, or if you may be saying, okay, I'm selling it to somebody who wants to move in, him or herself, or the family wants to move in. If it's a single family house, or even on a duplex, they might move into one side and then rent out the other side to make it more affordable. All those things are completely in your control. Now, that is to some extent also true in the multifamily space, but the big difference is in the multifamily space, everything revolves around the rent and not around the value of the property. So if I say, okay, I buy a house for $100, $120, $150,000, or the same thing for a duplex, that is the valuation, and the confirmation that that valuation is correct or in the ballpark is by doing an appraisal. And the appraisal is looking at what is typical in the area in the last 6 to 12 months. What are the prices that we have actually seen previously? And that's how we actually determine the price for this property. As soon as you go into the multifamily space, that is completely out the window. And I'm not claiming to be the expert, but one of the really core things that's very different is that the control over the valuation, how much is this actually worth, is no longer relevant to what other complexes or other properties have done in the past. The control and the valuation of that particular property is exclusively calculated based on the rent roll. So if you just take an easy example and say, okay, I get a 100-unit apartment complex as a multifamily investment, and you get theoretically $1,000 of rent for each. I mean, I know that's pretty unrealistic that the rent is exactly the same and every unit is exactly the same, but just for the ease of calculation, so you would have $100,000 of gross rent every month. So you would have $1.2 million in rent per year, and then from there you would take mortgage and insurance and all these other things off of that to figure out how much is your net income. But the valuation of that multifamily property is a multiple of the rent. So why are people basically trying to buy multifamily units, especially these days, if you can find them, is to say, I want to find a place, let's say our 100-unit apartment complex, where I can, with some reasonable amount of renovation, increase the value of each of the units so I can collect more rent. Because if you can say, okay, the value, let's say, is 5 years worth of gross rent, and we said it's 1.2 million a year, 5 years would mean this apartment complex is $6 million to buy. If you think about it, if you can take the rent from $1,000 to $1,500 because you renovated each one of the units, so then that means you have 1/3 more, or basically $1.6 million per year times 5 years, and you would end up with 4 times 5 is 2 million. So you would go from $6 million to $8 million valuation. But it has nothing to do if any other apartment complex in the area got a bigger valuation, a lower valuation, and so forth. So getting from 6 to 8 million so that you can sell it and make a profit, that is purely dependent on the rent. It has nothing to do, like in residential real estate, with the valuation of the property. And you are naturally much more prone to situations like we had with the pandemic, where people say, okay, well, I don't want to live so close together anymore. And apartment complexes that used to be occupied 90, 95, 98% might go down to 80%. So instead of having your 1.2 million a year, you might suddenly go down to 800,000 a year. Now, in a residential property, we don't really care that much as long as we can collect the rent, what the value of the property is. But if your value is directly related to the rent, by having less of your units occupied, your value goes down, even though the real estate market might be crazy hot like it is right now in residential. And something similar also applies to the business real estate world. Why is that the case? Because it's always a matter of how can somebody make money from a business real estate deal. Now, it used to be a really good deal if you, for example, owned like a piece of a mall and the tenant that you had in your piece of the mall was Macy's. Because they typically signed a 10-year contract where every year it increased by a certain percentage, and you knew exactly, okay, even if the property itself doesn't necessarily increase in value, I have a 10-year contract and I can predict for every year exactly what it will be, the income will be, and Macy's is a company that will most likely pay. So it's a very, very predictable program, or it used to be. But when you look at the situation right now, where it is very unclear what kind of businesses in retail especially will still be out there. It is very unclear. Business real estate also means office towers, right? Where we used to have large law offices and large other service offices, software companies, all these kind of companies that force their people to come to work in the office building. Now we know for more than a year, most of us that can are actually working from home. Now there's two dynamics coming in here now that really impact business real estate. One is, how much have we all gotten used to ordering a lot of things that we used to buy in the store online? For that, for any of those, I heard Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, you probably have heard about him, speak about that a little bit. And he was invested in Bed Bath & Beyond and still is, and they actually closed 200 stores. Now you would think, wow, that's devastating for them, but it isn't, because their amount of orders online and the sales and profits they generate online is more than they actually made in those 200 stores. So those stores are never going to come back. He also spoke about his portfolio. He used to have more than 30% of his investments in business real estate, and he brought it down to less than 10%. Why? Because more and more organizations said, okay, we interviewed our employees and asked them, if it were possible, pandemic is done, everybody is vaccinated, would you want to come back to work? And people say, no, I don't want to come back. I don't want to sit 2 hours in traffic every day going back and forth to work just to be in a cubicle when I have now arranged myself in a home workspace, and I have gained a lot of flexibility of exactly when to do my work, and I'm not losing time. It's actually, some people predict more likely that instead of having this typical 8 or 9 hour workday, that we only really need to work maybe 6 or 6.5 hours, because with all the stuff that used to happen in an office, that doesn't happen anymore, where you have the little chit chat and you need to go to a conference room, you need to wait for people and stuff like that. Work from home using things like Zoom and email and Teams and stuff like that is so much more efficient that you can probably get the same amount of work done in less time, which actually means, since you're already at home, you also have more time with your family. Who wants to give that up? So Kevin and a lot of other business real estate investors massively reduced their holdings in business real estate, because they just totally can't predict how many of these office buildings and these malls and the retail places are going to ever come back when the pandemic is behind us. So you can see, you might not have control in business real estate, because as the owner or investor in that real estate, you are directly dependent on the economic performance of your tenants, right? And those are tenants where, like a Macy's is the anchor tenant of the whole mall. If they are out, the mall is basically dead, whether you own that particular part of the building that Macy's is in or any of the other ones around there. And on multifamily, only if you can keep occupancy very high and you find a way to increase rents can you actually increase the value. If you compare that to what we are suggesting, residential real estate, then you already from day one look for performing properties, meaning like properties that actually meet the 1% rule. Buy for $100,000, get $1,000 rent. Buy for $150,000, get $1,500 rent per month. So that's for your income. And any appreciation that the properties are actually making over time, that's just icing on the cake. And you have the determination. If you ever wanted to get rid, if you don't want to do the passive income and reach your time freedom point, but you ever wanted to get rid of the property, then you cannot only sell to other business real estate investors or to other multifamily investors. You can both sell to either investors in residential real estate or to the open market, especially in times right now where there is so little inventory and so many people in the open market, not even talking about investors, looking for properties. So in summary, you have that advantage of having everybody who is actually interested in buying any kind of type of residential real estate as a potential client. You can sell to owners to people who want to become owners, or you can sell to any investor that is interested in investing in real estate. So that's a huge benefit that you have. Now, as you can imagine, these things were discussed in a nice way during our Clubhouse session, and we are planning to do more. So I want to invite you to come to our next Clubhouse session. If you would, please, in the comments below, give us a comment if you like to come to Clubhouse. If you like to get notified how to actually know when we're going to have the next Clubhouse session and get the link to get to it and stuff like that, either schedule a complimentary call with me on our website, idealwealthgrower.com, or sign up for our newsletter, which you can also get there, or basically give a comment here on our YouTube channel in the comments, and we will notify you if you let us know how to get in touch with you. So if you like this video, I hope you give it a thumbs up. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel and ring the little notification bell so that you get notified when we have other videos. We have a new video every Wednesday and every Friday. And maybe at some point also have some more videos based on our Clubhouse sessions. And with that, I would like to hope that you be well, stay safe, and I see you in the next video.